On today's episode of the NASM CPT Podcast with me, Richey, I explore my current favorite phase of the NASM OPT model. I go through a brief review of the OPT model, all the phases, and then I talk about what I like about the strength endurance phase of the OPT model. And I'll review the goals and the outcomes of this particular phase 2 of the NASM OPT model and what it's good for. I discuss how it can be a starting phase for maybe some obstinate people who don't want to do phase 1. And then finally, I go through these examples of supersets that can be done in this particular phase of the model. So make sure that you like, follow, subscribe, and share with your fitness friends and family, and leave a 5-star review. Now, here's the episode, my current favorite phase of the NASM OPT model.
You're listening to the NASM CPT Podcast with Richey, winner of the Share Care Emmy Award for Social Storytelling and the official podcast of the National Academy of Sports Medicine.
Hey, y'all, and welcome to the NASM CPT Podcast. My name is Richey, and today I want to talk about my current favorite phase of the NASM OPT model. But let me do this. Let me just do a quick review of the OPT model with you because it's really a powerful tool that you have at your disposal to help you program your clients. And I think we get a lot of questions, even after people go through NASM and they're like, how do I do programming? And I go, that's what the model is. The model is such an integral part of what we do at NASM, and it is just a clear model of periodization. It takes you through the phase 1 is the strength endurance phase. Then phase 2 is the phase 1 is the stabilization endurance phase. Phase 2 is the strength endurance phase. I'm talking about the strength endurance phase today, so I was ready to jump the gun with that. So phase 1, stabilization endurance. Phase 2, strength endurance. Phase 3 is the muscular development or hypertrophy phase. And then the next phase, phase 4, max strength. Phase 5 is the power phase. Now, my favorite one to do is not the same necessarily as my current favorite one for me and what my goals are right now. So I think the most fun one is the power phase. You get to lift heavy stuff and you get to throw things around. Are you kidding me? Sign me up. That hook that up. That's a fun type of training. But in the gym I work at, it's a little bit harder to throw things. It's a little bit harder to do some of the jumps that I want to do. It's a little bit more challenging just in the environment, but also it's not really what my goals are right now. And so I'm going to take you into what my current favorite phase is, and that's going to be the strength endurance phase of the NASM OPT model, because typically workouts in this phase, they're going to involve about 3 to 6 sets of 6 to 12 repetitions per exercise. But it's not just an exercise, it's a superset of exercises. You're going to take 2 exercises and you're going to do them back to back. And those intensities are going to be, relatively heavy because you're limited to that 6 to 12 reps. I'm usually a little more towards 8 to 12, but I like doing the 6 as I get more fatigued. Instead of making the weight a little bit lighter, I usually keep the weight where it is. And then I just go for fewer reps and really go into my muscles absolute fatigue. So the volitional fatigue that is there, sometimes I just got to hang it up and be like, it's not working for me right now. That tempo is a little bit different too. So we call it a 2020 tempo. So what that's going to be is going to be a 2-second. I'll use like a bench press as an example, because you can see this part of my body if you're watching on YouTube. So my arm's out in front of me and I'm going to lower down towards my chest. The first number is the eccentric phase, or the negative. So 2 seconds down, but add those Mississippis into the 2 seconds. So 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and then a 0 at the bottom. So we're not hanging out and chilling at the bottom. We're going to just lift up for 1, 2 Mississippi again, and then 0 at the top. So the 2s are the eccentric. So and then the 2-0-2-0. The zeros are the stall between the concentric and eccentric, and the stall between the eccentric and the concentric, which if it's 0, that means there's no stall. So we're not holding it at the bottom. We're not holding and resting at the top. We are just working. And as we go through this work, we got kind of two major focuses that we're going to look at here. And one of the things I love about the NASM OPT model is it tells you what those focuses are in the name of the phase. What are you trying to get out of the stabilization endurance phase? Stabilization endurance. Well, I'm talking about the strength endurance phase. What are you trying to get out of it? Strength and endurance. You're going to build strength, you're going to develop the muscles, but it's also going to be the endurance that goes along with it. Why? Because it is a superset. And that is one thing that the strength endurance phase and the power phase have in common, is that they have supersets in them. And those two are generally my favorite ones to do when it comes to the NASM OPT model. And maybe just because I like supersets. But let's be honest. Sometimes I like doing the max strength only, and I like resting for 3 to 5 minutes. Sometimes that's a fun one. Sometimes just the hypertrophy and not the superset. Sometimes doing that endurance work and getting that burn and keeping my heart rate up. But my current favorite one that's kind of aligning with what my current goals are going to be the strength endurance phase. So we're going to build strength and our endurance through a superset. All right, y'all. This episode of the NASM CPT Podcast is brought to you by NASM One, the membership for trainers and coaches. Members enjoy unlimited access to hundreds of career resources. Get the Edge app to schedule and program clients. Enjoy half off all certifications and specializations. Get access to free CEUs and more. All of this for just $35 a month. Go to nasm.org/membership to learn more about NASM One. So let me go through a couple of examples of why these can be a really engaging type of workout. Now, first of all, it's a lot of volume because you're doing a superset of 6 to 12 repetitions, and you're doing up to 6 sets. So like a 3 to 4, but topping out at 6 sets of the superset for each body part. So let's go through some body parts and kind of talk about it. Let's do chest, right? So why not start with the one closest to your heart? Chest. All right, so let's do pecs. So a typical one would be a barbell bench press, and then the superset. So that's your strength exercise. And basically, and I remember the people who came up with the model, like Mike Clark, and who came up with the model, and then they're trying to create this design before going into and developing it and putting it into the NASM curriculum decades ago. And some of those guys were like, we actually had a hard time whether we're going to do the endurance in strength superset or a strength endurance. And basically where it came to is that you're going to have, you do your endurance first, just the phase 1, but is the phase 2 going to be a strength endurance phase or an endurance strength phase? So do you do the endurance before you do strength, or do you do strength before you do endurance? And I think pragmatism won out on that, because it's really hard to lift heavy if you're reaching your, your max at, let's say, 10 repetitions, and then say, okay, now that we've done the heavy, the light where we can't lift it anymore, let's now do heavy weight. And I'm like, well, the weight you just did is now heavy. So you'd have to go even lighter in order to make that happen. So it is going for strength is limiting you between those 10 repetitions, the 6 to 12 reps, and then lighten the weight and still doing between 6 to 12 repetitions. So it's kind of a typical superset that you would see in the lifting world. You're going to do a barbell bench press, and then you can follow that by dumbbell flies and doing that for stabilization, like a single arm dumbbell fly, where you engage your core a lot more. You could do the bench press followed by supersetted with push-ups, because the push-ups require a lot more stabilization. You're not using a bench behind you, right? So you can do that. Doing the single arm dumbbell flies, another great example. You can do the foot elevated push-up. And one of the things I like about this one is when I get people sometimes and they don't really like doing the endurance phase, they just want to go right to lifting heavier weights, then sometimes I just put them into a phase 2 before they really get buy-in. I have to do something to make them interested in what I'm doing. And if you're not interested in what I'm doing and I want you to do an endurance, stabilization endurance workout, and you don't want to do that, then I might just put you into this phase because, yeah, I'm jumping ahead by doing the strength training than what I would rather do, but I'm still getting the endurance training. So I'm getting you to buy in, but I'm also able to sell you what I want at the same time. So we're both getting a little bit, we're negotiating by moving you up into the next phase. So you're doing the bench press supersetted with the push-ups. And here's an example that I had done, I don't know, years and years ago, where I had somebody just like, hey, this endurance business, these 15 reps, I'm not buying into. I don't like it. I'm trying to get jacked. And I was like, all right, cool. Then let's just switch you over. I'm going to put you into like a regular kind of workout routine that's going to fit more with probably what you want to do. But you get to pick the exercise, but I'm going to add an exercise to it. And he was like, all right, bet. So let's do bench press, go figure. And so I said, we're going to do it probably a little bit slower than what you normally do. It's a 2020 count. So you're not just banging out. You're just like 2 seconds down, 2 seconds up, which was a lot slower than he was used to. It's a 4-second repetition to complete versus what was typically a 2-second repetition for a lot of people, including him. So I said, your superset is we're going to do push-ups. But those push-ups I'm going to make slower. I'm going to make those push-ups go into a 3, 2, 1, 0 count. And so what he did is he did the push-ups, and I said, whatever you could do for 10. And he put the weight on the bar. We put the weight on the bar, that what he thought he could do for 10. And he didn't get 10 because he had to do them slower. So he ended up getting 8 repetitions and then got down onto the floor. And those 3, 2, 1 push-ups were no joke. So lowering down for 3, pausing at the bottom without resting your belly or your chest on the floor, and then coming back up. So 3 down, 2 pause at the bottom, lift up for 1, no hanging out after the 1, go right back down into your 3 count. And we're going to do that same thing, attempting for 10 repetitions, but I didn't let him get out of the 10 repetitions. So when he started to clearly not able to do it anymore, he dropped down to his knees and said, no, we're going to put your hands on the bench instead of dropping down to the knees. So he puts his hands on the bench, and he first did like 4 push-ups, and then he did about 3 more push-ups. He couldn't do any more than that. And then I said, okay, now we're going to straddle the bench, put your hands on the bar that we're doing the barbell bench press with. And he was able to get his final 3 repetitions. And that was great, because then I say, okay, you got 60 seconds. We're going to do it again. What? That is not enough rest time for me. And that became a real challenging workout where we did have to lighten the weights. And then we started him with his push-ups, just hands on the bench. And so what that did is gave him a pretty intense workout, but also let him know that, like, I'm going to get you. We're going to get a good workout, whatever it is. And he kind of just fell in and said, hey, whatever you want to do, I believe in you. That's kind of a great workout. And I was able to then take him from doing the strength endurance training to back up and do some of the stabilization endurance before moving him up into the hypertrophy only training. So there was some good buy-in when it came along with that. And I like it because it gives you a lot of good goals and outcomes, which I'll get into in a moment. But let me just go through a couple more supersets. So like a barbell squat, and then you're going to follow it by a single leg squat. And that's your stabilization equivalent. So it used to be called strength stabilization equivalent training. So we changed it to what the outcomes are, which is strength and endurance, but rather than what you do after something. So, but the stabilization equivalent is you basically do whatever a traditional strength training exercise is, and you superset it with the stabilization equivalent. For instance, another one, lat pull downs. supersetted with a cable lat sweep or a supine lat pullover. So using a dumbbell, lying down on a bench, doing the lat pullover. You could do things like a barbell deadlift and superset that with dumbbells and do a single leg or a kickstand version of the RDL. You could do the shoulder press, right? So just going to the shoulder press, and then you can practice just standing on one leg, supersetting with lateral raises or front raises. Then those would be kind of stabilization challenges where you challenge your stability and still work the muscle. I also like these single leg bent over scaptions, which is a great one. I don't put, usually if I bring over a 5-pound dumbbell to some of even my biggest clients, they know at this point that they should be very afraid if I bring small weights over, because if the weight is so hard that I'm bringing you a 5-pound weight, then that must be ridiculously challenging. So I used to get giggles. What are we going to do with those dumbbells? Floss our teeth? Not anymore. Now I bring over a 3-pound dumbbell. They're like, what? What are we doing? Why would you only bring a 3-pound? What is it? What are we doing? You ain't got nothing to be scared about. I got you. But we're going to do challenging workouts. We're going to do challenging exercises, add that stability into the strength exercise. And I find it enjoyable. I find that a good one. I enjoy the burn. I like the workout. I like the challenge. And it fits into what my current goals are. Yes, strength and endurance now. But let's go through a little bit more and talk about what are some of the other benefits and outcomes of doing strength and endurance training. So it's going to enhance your joint stabilization, and you've got some load onto these joints. So stabilizing without load is one thing. Adding load to your stability is going to be a lot more. So we can do this like, again, the bench press, and we're fatiguing our big muscles. So then we go lighter, and now some of our smaller muscles, the only ones that are still existing that are not absolutely gassed out, that are helping us do some of the exercises. Yeah, those big muscles are still working because it's lighter weight, but we're really requesting those stabilizers to continue to work because they will work longer. They're more of a muscle fiber that can engage for a longer amount of time, and we're just going to request that you keep on stabilizing as I lower the weight, so that now we are working our stabilizing muscles for a longer period of time. Also, it's going to improve your coordination and your muscular efficiency as you continue to try to push yourself beyond this one set of reps in reserve. So maybe you only have 2 reps in reserve there. Maybe you have 0. You've gone to absolute fatigue. Now you got to lighten the weight and still do an entire another set with the same muscle group. So it's going to improve your coordination through some of this, but also the efficiency of your muscle to do things. It's going to build your strength for everyday activities, and the volume is going to help burn more calories during and after the workout, because the up to 6 sets, that's a lot of volume, especially with a superset. But let's get to what I'm really trying to do right now. Is I am building hypertrophy. I'm in the hypertrophy building phase right now and the muscular development phase. But what I don't want to do now is only stop there. I want to still increase how much I'm working, maintaining a metabolic increase, because it's only like a 60-second rest as opposed to hypertrophy training. I get up to 2 minutes, and even more sometimes that you would take in between there. So I'd rather just keep my heart rate up, and I can work on both building the demands that are there for my muscle, but also keeping my metabolism up, keeping my metabolic demand up, and keep my heart rate up a little bit. So now I'm working more in my system than just focusing on lifting big, heavy weights, which I ain't opposed to either. All right, y'all, thanks for listening. And thanks to our producer, Eric Sorensen. Like, subscribe, share, leave a 5-star review. And if you want to reach out to me, do so. You can hit me up on Instagram at dr.rickricchey or email me, rick.ritchey@nasm.org. You'll keep inspiring people to fitness. Thanks for listening. This has been the NASM CPT Podcast.